people had registered. But, if we get 10 or 20 people show up, that would be awesome. All right, so it looks like we're live. We got 18 people already in the room. Hey guys, when you, if you don't mind, as you file in, type your name and or where you're from. Your name will show up anyway, but type where you're from and say hello. My name is Jake Robinson. I am a member of Land Academy, and I have a special guest tonight, Tim Flood. He's also a pro member of Land Academy. And Tim, we're relieved. We went through quite a bit. Hey, Daniel. All right, Daniel Humlin. I spoke to him on the phone. He's going to be starting a podcast about the land business. Good to have you on board. Hey, Neil, Arlington, Virginia. So far, Daniel has the furthest away from me anyway. I'm in Tennessee. And so looks like he's going to win. Sean. All right, brother. Is that my brother, Sean Mills, over in East Tennessee? And Ben in Beeville, Texas. Brian, Middle Tennessee. I know who you are, Brian. Hello, Jake, Adam, live near D.C., moving to Texas. Walking to freedom is what we call that.
Solid decision.
Thing is, you should have come to Tennessee, man. You're already halfway there, and we have no state income tax. Plus, our taxes are cheaper than you guys in Texas. You're in Texas, right? Right outside of Fort Worth and Colleyville?
Yeah, Colleyville, Texas.
All right. Mm-hmm. And we got Juan in Seattle, Washington. So who's further, Seattle or where did Daniel's in Portland? Okay. Van in Michigan. Ivan in Van, Michigan. Hey, Ivan. Hey, Samantha, North Carolina. Aaron in Iowa. Finally retiring from the Navy. My family is in DFW. So you're right there with Tim Flood.
That's right. There's another Metro guy.
Did you go to? Did you attend the Top Gun golf thing with the Plum Group with Justin Sleva and those guys?
So that's coming up on Saturday.
Oh, it is coming up this Saturday. Okay, yeah. I got my dates crossed up on that.
Yeah.
Okay, got Greg in Ontario. That's pretty far, and James from Taxifornia. I feel your pain, brother. Paul behind every enemy lines in New Jersey. You guys need to escape, man. You know how to buy some land. Just move to find some land in a better place. Brian in Tennessee. Are you in Bryan, Tennessee? Because it says Brian in Bryan. Oh, I did tell you to put your name in there. Alex from Syracuse, New York. Okay. We've got 24 people in the room. I'm kind of excited about this, guys. I used to do webinars like this in a different business, and you may have seen the post in Land Academy in the forum. I got really interested in doing selling private label products on Amazon through their FBA program fulfilled by Amazon, which basically you just ship in all your stuff in a box at one time. Amazon picks it, packs it, ships it, makes the payment, takes care of fraud, processes credit cards, all of that for you, and takes a percentage of it. I got really excited about that, and as a fluke or a lark, 6 or 8 of us from a Facebook group that were trying to do it when we were all new decided to get on a Google Hangout, kind of like this, and just chat with each other. And then before you know it, we had more people showing up. And then I finally said, well, maybe we need to get somebody here that knows more than I do, that we can interview and learn something from. And that took off, and I started doing these weekly webinars in the Amazon space. And in a period of just 2 or 3 months, I built a list of about 3,000 people who were subscribed to the webinars. We'd have 100, 150 live people every week on the live call, on the webinar. And then things would happen on the back end, replay link. The replay links, hey, Chuck. Glad to have you on board. And so on the replay links, we'd get hundreds of people, maybe thousands, and then it would get posted on YouTube. Anyway, I thought, wow, this would be a great thing for us. I know how it benefited people who was trying to learn that business, because I brought on people who were making 7 figures and 6 figures, very successful sellers, men, women, old, young. It was across the board. And every week we would learn some valuable nugget, maybe a whole handful of nuggets that you could immediately apply to your business and get better. And I know from that experience that, wow, I've got a front row seat here to interview people like Tim Flood and learn about this business. I don't know how many people in here listen to attend the Thursday call with Steve and Jill for members only. Just if you don't mind, I should have put a poll up on that. Just curious how many, because I don't know about you, but every week I learn something new. And a lot of times I'm learning it from the other members who are posting on the side in the chat box. And so if you guys have questions as we go, feel free to post in there. Oh, Joe from Honolulu. Okay, you're winning the long distance award, Joe. Welcome from Honolulu. And okay, I try about every 4 weeks. I don't know which one that was. What the reply was to that. All right, well, let's get started, guys. I always start promptly at 8 o'clock, and I told Tim whether he's on here or not, I'm going to start. And he almost wasn't on here. We were going through a lot of Murphy's Law today, man. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. We couldn't get him on the screen. If you notice, maybe his image is kind of pixelating, or sometimes it freezes because he's working off of a laptop. Describe your laptop, Tim.
Well, so we have built this business on a shoestring, and to get started with, in 2016, we just bought a Lenovo IdeaPad 110, and the Lenovo is at about the end of its useful life. And I'm not really a techie, but someone gave me an analogy. It's like trying to drive a Mack truck with a Prius engine in it. And so, but we just did what we needed to do, and it's really not been time to upgrade the computer, but now it's time. So we've made do with what we had.
Good deal. All right, guys, I'm trying to open up I hadn't done a webinar in a long time, so I may be a little rusty. I've got a module that's supposed to be opening on a separate computer so that I can actually capture your questions as they come in. So it may not, I don't know, it just sit there hourglass and it may not ever open. So you're going to have to help me catch those questions when they come in. Tim uses sticks and smoke signals to communicate. That's kind of how it felt like today. A lot of back and forth on the back end, but he's on here, so that's what counts. So give us a background, Tim. How did you learn about this? By the way, if you're brand new to this, if you're watching this and you're not a member of LA or Land Academy, which is the membership group we both belong to, where we're learning how to buy inexpensive real estate, maybe buying it as much as low as 10 to 25 cents on the dollar. It's crazy. That's what we're going to be talking about. So when you're seeing us talk about land investing, we're not talking about you having to go out and mortgage your house or rob your 401k. We're talking about taking small amounts of money, to $1,500 or $500 or a couple $1,000s, and buying a piece of property, turn around and flipping it and selling it for at least double your money, and be the lowest seller out there on the market so it sells really quick. So how did you find out about this business, Tim? How did you become aware of it?
Yeah, so all of my adult life, ever since graduating college and being an employee, I graduated with a degree in construction management, and I've been in construction my entire adult life. And I've always looked for a side hustle, and we were into the Dave Ramsey thing for a while, and I delivered pizzas, and I had a lawn business. I did all those things. But what led me to Land Academy was I was also doing Amazon FBA. And,
really? Okay.
Yeah. And I was making some money at Amazon, but I wasn't really making enough to justify quitting my job or really improving my lifestyle. It was really a lot of work for the sake of work to me. And I had been doing that for maybe, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years. And what I ended up with was a barn full of crap that I could not sell. So I'll just give you one, for instance, is that I remember this one guy was doing a video on these games. He was selling board games. And I thought, well, I'll go to all these auctions and I'll buy all the Monopoly games there are. And I'll take all the pieces and I'll make complete Monopoly games and I'll sell them. And I just had this crazy, but I ended up with a bunch of junk in my, so I thought, well, eBay, the peak of eBay maybe has come and gone, but I'm going to try and sell some of this stuff on eBay. But I didn't really know how to do eBay profitably. Seemed like I was losing money on every deal. So I started looking for podcasts to teach me how to sell stuff on eBay. And because of the keyword search at that time, Steve and Jill were primarily doing land on eBay. And I found their podcast, Land Academy. And at that time, they had maybe, I don't know, 50 episodes or something like that. And I
Wow,
listened
that's
to
back
all,
then.
yeah, I listened to all 50 or whatever the number was. I listened to all of them. I listened I listened through the podcasts again. And I sent it to a buddy of mine, and I said, man, this kind of sounds a little bit like late night TV, but kind of different. I said, why don't you listen to this podcast and tell me what you think of these people? And this buddy of mine has always just been an idea guy and a sounding board, and he called me back about 3 days later, and this guy was fired up. And he said, Tim, I think we can do this. And I wasn't necessarily looking for a partner, but he said, man, let's do it. And so we started in the spring of 2016, and we bought the at that time it was CDs. Maybe it's downloads now, but anyway, we bought the education kit and we started. And what we did.
What year was that?
2016.
Okay.
And so what we did was, because I live in Fort Worth, and I've always been, even from being a kid before the internet, for whatever reason, I just like the Thrifty Nickel, the Ad Sack. I love those kind of papers, which of course evolved into Craigslist. And I knew for a fact that being on Craigslist that people from Dallas, Fort Worth bought land in Oklahoma. I just had seen the ads too many times. And so I drew a 3-hour circle around Dallas, Fort Worth, which put us into western Louisiana, southern Oklahoma, southeastern Oklahoma, and a little bit further west. And so we sent out mailers to counties. And you want to take it? Is that a good intro, or do you want to?
Yeah. Let me ask you this: when you first got started, when you joined in 2016, how long did it take you to get your first mailer out? Weeks, months, what?
I have to think back for just a minute. We bought the kit in April of 2016, and by June we were talking to sellers. So I would say weeks. I don't think we overanalyzed it. I think that we got the gist of it. We pulled the data, we scrubbed the data, and we sent it out. Because I was pretty confident in my geographic area. I was pretty confident in that. I didn't spend too long overanalyzing that part of it. So I would say weeks. Within weeks, we had our first mailer out.
That's pretty quick for me. I mean, I was a slow starter. I joined in October this past year, and my first mailer went out January 3rd. And so I did. Of course, there was Thanksgiving and Christmas in there that kind of slowed things down. But still, I did kind of like you. I started doing the podcast thing, and part of it was I was just trying to confirm: is this real? Is this legit?
Yeah.
It's like too good to be true. But the way Steve and Jill comes across, they're very authentic.
Yeah.
And how they communicate. These people are real. They're not BSing. I can tell this is probably the most excited I've been almost about any business opportunity that I've seen in my life. And I've seen 2 good ones, and this was number 3, but I think this is going to be the best one. I'm actually looking forward to how this can grow. And, but anyway, I got my mailer out, and I've had a modicum of success. So when you sent out your first mailer, do you remember how many people responded in a positive fashion?
I don't remember exactly how many, but I do remember this. I remember the very first call I took was from an elderly gentleman, and I was working at the time, so I was trying to answer calls and do my job, and that was a little awkward. But I talked to an elderly gentleman, and the very first call, he said, "What do I need to do? Just sign this offer letter?" I said, "Yep, just sign it and send it back."
Your first freaking call?
Yeah. And I hung up the phone, and I thought, man, this is going to be the easiest thing I have ever done. And the second call was, "You MFer this," and then the next call was, "You're a vulture and you're preying on old people," and it was abuse from there on out. But that first call was like, "What do I do? Just sign the thing and send it back?" And I thought, too easy. And
yeah, it's like breaking that wine bottle on the front of your ship as you launch it into the ocean.
Yeah. So the first one was easy, and we bought it. It was a little 5-acre parcel in Oklahoma. We bought it for $500 and sold it for $5,000. So We had a pretty quick, right off the bat, we had a pretty successful venture. There were some things that we got paralyzed by early on. We didn't know about affidavits to terminate joint tenancy. We didn't know about death certificates. We didn't know about some of those kind of things.
Whoa, slow down. That's the kind of stuff I like to ask questions about. So what was it about an affidavit you didn't know about, and what if somebody's brand new today? Why do they need to know about it, and what do they need to know?
Let me back up just a minute. So we were talking about the podcast and how I came to this business idea.
Yeah.
And I swear to you, Jake, if you sat me down in a quiet room and paid me 40 hours a week for the rest of my life, I would never, ever, ever have thought of this as a business idea. It would not have occurred to me to do this. So this is something totally out of my skill set, out of my range, out of my natural inclination. I didn't know anything about it. I don't have any kind of real estate background. I didn't know anything from anything. And with land, what I have learned, there's kind of a good old boy brother-in-law kind of way to transfer land, and then there's I'm going to use the actual correct way to do it. And so what happens is these people will hand over land through their family, or they'll hand it down in a will, or they'll do all kinds of things to transfer land. And it's not exactly.
It doesn't test the time. It doesn't stand the test of legality or the standard test of court battle.
Yeah, because you got to have all the I's dotted and all the T's crossed. And so this particular piece of land, this is in Oklahoma. Every state is different. Every situation is different. But in this particular case, he and his wife own this land in joint tenancy. She had passed away. So there was this affidavit to terminate the joint tenancy. So there's a legal instrument, and you have to terminate it before he can sell it to us. And we didn't know any of that. And so learning all of those little steps, there was a lot of paralysis. And so I think we sat on that land for quite a while, just not knowing what to do.
Did you get him to get the affidavit signed then? Is that what happened?
Yeah. He had to provide the death certificate for his wife and also the affidavit. We filed that at the courthouse, and then it was easy from there. But to start with, we didn't know.
So you mentioned affidavit, then you mentioned a couple other things. What were those other two things you said that you needed to learn about?
Well, death certificates, for one thing. We needed a death certificate for his wife, and in the state of Oklahoma, they don't give out death certificates to anybody except immediate family. I don't know if that's true in other states, but I do know in Oklahoma, as a land buyer, I can't order the death certificate for Joe Smith's wife. It has to be Joe Smith order that death certificate, and we've had to track down dead people, and that gets, because of that, because of the privacy laws in place, it can get tricky if there's dead people on the title.
All right. So on your first deal, how big was the property? You remember?
Yeah, it was a 5-acre parcel.
And what did you pay for it? Do you remember?
$500.
And what did you sell it for?
$5,000.
Whoa! 10x out of the gate.
Yeah.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
Now, is everything you've done subsequent to that been in the same kind of
ballpark? Yeah, sure, Jake. Sure, 10x and more. Yeah, they're all that easy. No.
So what's a typical deal for you now? You told me that you ran this business 2 years part-time with your partner, and you did like 26 deals during that 2-year period?
Yeah, so we were doing it as a side hustle. I worked in construction, and my buddy's in the diesel industry, so we both had very demanding careers, and we were just doing this as a side hustle. And so we were dealing with smaller parcels. At that time, 10 acres was a big parcel for us. 5 acres was more common. So 5 to 6 to 7, 10 acres was a stretch, and we were targeting primarily Oklahoma. And so, yeah, we would buy them at $500 or $750 and sell them for, we would try to get 2x. We would try and double our money. So if we bought it at $500 an acre, we wanted to sell it for $1,000 an acre.
500 per acre, not 500 for the property.
Yeah. That first one was a total fluke. Again, I didn't know what I was doing, and
so now that you know what you're doing, you don't do so well.
Yeah, so it's just like you got to find the pricing of the land when the mailers go out is really one part science and one part art. there's really, it's kind of a deal where you got kind of lick your thumb and kind of just, feel the winds. We've done well on some mailers and we've done not well on some mailers. We
So
try.
let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
Let me ask some questions about pricing, because that's the thing that probably kept me from getting my mailer out sooner, is I kept second guessing it. How do I know for sure that I'm pricing this thing right? So when I go pull from RealQuest the data on a county, and I choose whatever it might be, 5-acre lots, and they come back, how do you go out in the marketplace and determine what the price should be? What's your steps, your methodology?
So what I do is I go to all the land sales. Let me back up a minute. As far as I know, again, in Oklahoma and Texas, I can't speak for the other 48 states, but the actual sale price on land is not recorded anywhere. It's kind of a gentleman's agreement, and many times the deeds are recorded for the sum and consideration of $10, because land is often a cash business, and it's not recorded accurately at the county courthouse. So what I do is go to websites like LandWatch, Zillow, Redfin, Craigslist, Land and Farm, all the websites that are selling land, and I look at a county, and then I really try and narrow it down on Google Earth, and I try and actually identify where in the county is this land for sale. So just as a made up for instance, if it's at the corner of Farm to Market 559 and County Road 1000, I try and actually find that on Google Earth. And I'll drop a pin at that specific location, and I'll say, okay, land at this location is 1,000 an acre. And then I'll keep plotting out different points and try and look for a pattern that emerges.
Okay, back up. This sounds like you're doing a lot of work. So if you go to LandWatch and then you go to Redfin or et cetera, are you going in and just saying, give me every piece of land that's for sale on LandWatch in that county? And what are you doing? Are you cutting and pasting into a spreadsheet and making a list of them?
I've tried all kinds of different formats. There's some software that's commercially available. I just make a little spreadsheet, and I try and pull on LandWatch, as a for instance, I try and pull comparables to what I want to mail. So, but it can be a wide range. So it might be 5 acres to 50 acres. And you got to figure land for sale. Maybe 5 to 10 acres is going to be $1, one price range. And then 11 to 25 is another, and 26 to 50 is kind of another, So
That's exactly what I did.
So you got to take all that into consideration, and then yeah. So if it's a commercial property that's for sale, that's raw land, I don't put that in the equation because that's not what I'm looking for. If it's rural land with a barn on it, I don't put that in the equation because that's not what I'm looking for. So I really try and scrub, and the counties where I do the best are where many people are selling land because I have lots of data points to pull from. If it's kind of an isolated county, there's not a lot of listings, it can be tricky. I just have to kind of make my best guess at it.
Okay, so going back to looking at what's available in a county and a particular website, for example, Redfin, or I use LandWatch on the first one and a little bit of Realtor.com. I did notice that Stephen mentioned on this past call that he's quit using LandWatch and he's gone like to totally Realtor.com over this past month. He said just as recent as month, and maybe because he's noticed that Realtor.com has more data. I don't know. But I did the same thing. I went in, and let me ask you a quick question, and I'm going to compare what I went through in Tennessee. What size property did you start searching for early on in your mailers? Because I'm sure you scaled up after a while.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. So at first it was like 5 acres we sent out a bunch of mailers at 5 acres only, and maybe we did it 4.99 to 5.01 or something like that. But then we increased, and maybe we did 5 to 7s, and then when we included 10-acre parcels in the mix, that was a really big deal. But now go ahead.
I want to say how many records would you get back in the area that you were, like you said, southern Oklahoma? If you said, give me everything that's 5 acres or 4.9 to 5, how many actual records, parcels would there be available?
I remember I want to say reprimanded. That's not the right word to use, but Steve kind of reprimanded me on a mailer. I was able to find 800 records in a particular county for that size parcel. And he said, you're never going to make it with that. You really got to ramp up your mail.
Yeah,
So
but if that's all there is,
if
if there's
that's all
only
there
eight,
is,
wait a minute, was there more than 800 and you just mailed 800? How many was available?
yeah, everything that was available, I pulled. That's all there was
Well,
in that
I had
one
the same
county.
situation in Tennessee. I pulled a county and I was getting like 312 or 287 or 413. It's like, there's not any properties here. There's not any part.
Mhm.
And I actually, sent an email to support and said, is this right? And they said, you got to be doing something wrong. And then I went to Mojave County. Is that in
Mhm.
Nevada, I guess? Uh,
Arizona, maybe.
Arizona, wherever that is, and I just put in 5.0 exactly, and 9,500 parcels came back.
Right,
I said, no wonder they think I'm doing something wrong. They just have
right,
more parcels out west, I guess.
right.
I basically wound up pulling every single unimproved land parcel in the county I was working in here in Tennessee, and there was a total of 1,174 from 4 acres and up to the largest parcel in the county. I mailed them all. And that's right about the time they launched the land deal, the land tank, or the deal board thing that they had. I thought,
Mhm.
well, if a big one comes back, I'll just run it by them. I don't have enough in here, but I did wind up, even with that small amount of 4 to 6 acres, I wound up buying 2 properties off that first mailer. So I got, I guess, similar results.
Mhm.
And I wasn't as diligent as you. I don't think I didn't go to 5 or 6 different websites. I just went to really 1 or 2 and pulled everything I could and put it in a spreadsheet and did ran a calculation on price per acre, found the lowest price per acre on that spreadsheet and said, okay, I'm going to make an offer 25% of that
Mhm.
lowest one. So it's the lowest one. That means a lot of people that had property worth way more than that were getting
Mhm.
these dirt cheap offers. It had to be maybe like 5 or 10% of the going rate for their properties. And I got a lot of hate calls. I did get my lady that called me and said, you are, you're taking advantage of people. And she
Mhm.
finally wound up saying, well, I tell you what, happen to know the DA in my county, and I think I'm going to turn you into for fraud. I said, ma'am, I'm not defrauding you. I just gave you a low offer. And the good thing is, if you didn't like it, you can throw that letter away. But I don't think she turned me in. But anyway, people do get upset for sure. But okay, Aaron is saying I'm getting a lot of feedback from your mic. I think what's happening is you don't have a headset, Tim. And when I'm speaking, it's coming over your speakers and feeding back into your mic. So if I'm sitting here rambling on and talking, you might just mute your mic temporarily,
Okay.
and then when you see that I, stop talking or blabbering, you can and come back in there. All right, let me change gears then and ask a few more questions. So you started doing the 5 acre to 6 acre. How many mailings did you think you went through before you felt confident to start moving up in size? Which means you're moving up in the amount of money that you're that you're using to pay for properties, right?
Yeah, Jake. So I don't remember exactly the exact sequence because, again, we were just doing it as a side hustle. We had some financial goals and we were starting to think about how we could turn this into a full time thing and do this instead of work. But we just kind of kept. I'll tell you what happened. Early on, we kept trying to force deals to be deals that were not deals. And we finally, one of the things that Steve said, and we finally took this to heart, get out a mailer every month. And so we started being more diligent about our mail. And instead of trying to force a square peg into a round hole to be a deal, we would just move on. And eventually we got to kind of looking at bigger parcels and we bought a 7 acre parcel and then we bought a 9 acre parcel and then we bought a 10 and a 12 and a 20. And so we just over time did it. And I don't remember the exact sequence of it, but I just remember that the key for us was recognizing that we had to get out more mail.
Okay. So here's a question for you. Those properties that when you got the 10 and 12 acres, what were you paying for those? I mean, you were doing a lot smaller acreage. How much money were you talking about there for a
Well,
purchase?
this was all in southeastern Oklahoma, and so we tried to stick pretty close to 500 an acre. I think what I was going to say earlier, Steve, in his example, in the video example, was mailing out one of those desert counties in Arizona, and he plugged in $100 an acre in that video example. Well, I was too dumb. I didn't know any better. I thought that was the price. I thought that's what you had to offer. So my first mailer went out at $100 an acre. And that's why some of the hate, and that's why I bought that 5-acre parcel at $500. When I
Nice.
realized that was not the formula everywhere, I had to kind of readjust. And that's when we started looking, and we mailed out most of the counties in southeastern Oklahoma at $500 an acre. And that was all like 10 and under, let's say.
Well, here's an issue I have with that, because I have this theory that why does it matter if you're too low or not? I mean, for example, the people who sell their properties, they fall in that category as they don't want their property anymore. They're tired of paying taxes. They inherit it from their dad. They didn't pay any money out of pocket. So here's a guy offering me cash for this thing. I can get out quick. I don't understand why people are lazy. They won't even hire a real estate agent to sell their property, but they do. They sell it to us. But here's the thing. If I price a mailer and I say, I think that I'm going to offer $500 an acre, and you say, well, yeah, but in this area, you know, that's probably too low. You ought to probably be doing it for $700 an acre. How do you know that? Because the person that gets the letter, do you really think they get your letter and say, these guys are trying to offer me $500 an acre. I know my property's at least $700. If they'd offered me $700 an acre, I would have sold it to them. I just don't think that happens. I just think no matter what the price is, unless it's, you know, free, I think there's always going to be some buyers. I don't know. Is there a sliding scale where people feel more receptive if you go up a little bit more and make an offer a little bit high? Because I know they say if you price it too high, you know you've got it wrong when everybody calls you and wants to sell.
Yeah, that's right. So I think there is a sliding scale, and I think it's all about the person and their situation and the time of the thing and the situation in life, and it's just really hard to know. That's why I say it's as much art as it is science. Jerry says, if you're in a good area, all you need is a dollar number that gets attention. So maybe.
Do you agree with that?
Well, your thought made me think of this. I think it is a sliding scale. So let's say you had Bill Gates kind of money and you offered everybody $1 million an acre. Well, of course, everybody's going to sell to you, but you know, you're not going to make any money on it. And then if you go down to the other end of the scale and offer $1 an acre, no one's going to. So you got to kind of find that sweet spot, and that's where the research and again, Jake, I'm a big believer in don't agonize over it. Do the research you need to do, but when you plug in a number, feel confident in it, let it fly, and just see what happens. You can't
you know what you're describing, right? You're describing Laffer's curve. You know who Art Laffer is? He was Reagan's economic advisor, and on a napkin he drew out the Laffer curve to explain what you just explained about taxation. So in other words, if he said, well, if you had a zero income tax rate, how much money would the government collect? And I guess it might have been Reagan. He's not zero. You're not going to collect anything, because that's right. But what if you go to the other end of the scale and let's say you have 100% income tax rate? How much are you going to collect? Zero, because nobody's going to let you take 100%. So why work? So there is somewhere in between that 100 and zero that you start. So if you back down the rate to 99%, you might collect a little bit of money. And if you raise it to 1%, you're going to collect a little bit of money. Somewhere in the middle. And what he found out and what he postulated is around 21% is the maximum optimum amount that you could tax people, that the government would collect the very most money. And it could probably slides up and down. And I think that's what you're saying about what you just explained about Bill Gates' analogy, is that, yeah, there must be a sliding scale in there. I mean, I know this. When I go to a yard sale, I like to go to yard sales and flea markets, that kind of thing. And I'm a scavenger, so I fit right in with this business. I like getting good deals. So I know when I walk up to a yard sale, I see something I like a tool or something, I know in my gut if it's a good deal or not, right? You know when it's overpriced. Like, there's no way I'd pay this at a yard sale. It's a gut instinct. I think it's just an inherent knowledge, and maybe that's what we're keying in on when we price a mailer the right way, is that we are getting that spot where there's enough people that's saying, yeah, I can live with this number.
My partner and I call that gut feeling the run to the bank moment, because we know that when the right property comes in at the right price, it is a gut instinct at this point, and it's a run to the bank moment, you know. And we hem and haw over some properties, and we say, well, this one I like this one, but I dislike this, and this is. But when it's the right deal, it's run to the bank. And
how many deals have you done though where you didn't have? You need to mute me there. How many of these deals have you done where it wasn't a run to the bank moment, but you know, maybe had a little bit of had a wart here or hair growing off of it there? Justin Sliva likes to say it has hair on it, too much hair on the deal. But you still bought it anyway, and you still did okay. Are there times when you bought something and you didn't feel that great about it, but it was still good enough deal that it went ahead and sold? Maybe it sold slow. How did it manifest itself if it wasn't that run to the bank kind of moment?
Yeah, so that happens too. We've had a lot of home runs, and we've had some that we just barely got out alive, you know, and we run into all kinds of circles. Not every deal has been, you know, that 10x return. Sometimes we make mistakes, and so we just try and get out of it and get rid of the land and move on. That's one of the things. There's a whole emotional component to this that you want to. If you bought a stinker for whatever reason, it's important to recognize that early on and just get away from it. And you think, well, if I go over there and I harvest the logs and I can build a road and I'll put in a little cabin, I'll make it look nice and I'll clean it up and I'll cut the grass and I'll put in a pipe fence, and you know, no, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to sell the thing and I'm going to move on and I'm going to do better on the next one.
Well, all right, but I got to pick on you a little bit here, because I know for a fact you do something that I do, which is, I don't know if you still do it, but you said you were driving to every property that you were buying. Are you still doing that?
Yes, I still do that. And I'll be honest, that has been one of the biggest keys to our success. So what happened was, in my case, there was another member in the group who had a similar story to me. He was an executive, was making really big money, lost his job, and decided he could either go get another job or he could make this land business work. And so what I was leading up to earlier is that being in construction, I was working 60 and 70 hours a week. I was out of town. I was still trying to do the land thing, but I was really bumping up against a very hard limit, in the sense that I couldn't call the county ladies from 9 to 5 because I was on a job site. And people would call me and there'd be equipment and jackhammer, and I was just really struggling to figure out how to scale up to the level we wanted to. Well, the construction company that I was working for solved that problem for me, and they let me go. And that was in October, and I agonized over that, man, for a long time. I was like, for a week, I was kind of in depression and struggling a little bit, and I met with this fellow for lunch. He lives just on the other side of Fort Worth from me. And do you know who Roger Bannister is? The guy who did the 4-minute mile?
Yeah, the 4-minute mile guy. Yep.
So nobody could run a 4-minute mile. It was scientifically impossible, and they proved it. And then this guy, Roger Bannister, maybe in the 50s, did it. And then, you know, the very next day, everybody could do it. And so it was a little bit like that for me, that I met with this guy, and he said, here's my story, and I lost my job, and I built this business, and I'm doing very well now. And I said, well, if he did it, I'm going to do it. And so one of the things he told me was about driving around looking at properties. And he said, you know, I've got the time all of a sudden. So I started putting highway miles on, and I started going and looking at these properties before we pulled the trigger on them. As good as Google Earth and the satellite imagery is, there are some things that you just need to see on the ground. You need to see the ravine that you're about to buy, or that was really the biggest thing, was the contours of the land, or well, it looks
what's
like
next door.
Yeah, it looks like a road, but is it really a road? We bought one early on from a satellite image, and what we thought was a county road was really an abandoned railroad bed. and so you couldn't get there. And so we started eliminating those kind of mistakes with going and putting boots on the ground and we bought a drone and we take drone footage,
Oh, do you?
camera footage, a video walkthrough, and that really eliminated a lot of our turds that we were buying by accident.
I'm gonna go in a different direction in a minute and go towards marketing, but I still want to go back to this idea just on the railroad thing. You bought it, right? So how did you get out alive? You just dump it at a low price?
We kept lowering the price and lowering the price and lowering the price, and finally we found a guy who wanted to buy it. It was really a beautiful piece of property. There was a river that bisected it, so it was maybe 3 acres on one side of the river and 4 acres on another. It was really a nice piece of land. You just couldn't get to it. And eventually we found a guy who wanted it at a low price.
So did you still get out ahead, or did you lose money on that?
No, we made money.
There you go. So really, it's almost impossible not to do this business without really blowing yourself up. I also want to say, thank God you got fired on your job. I really am happy that happened to you.
What really has, man, dude, you know how it is with a guy, and man, it was an ego. It bruised my ego and hurt my feelings, and I was butthurt about it, and it's really turned out to be a real blessing.
Well, it happened to my dad. I remember my dad always told me, he said, son, there's 2 things I can do, and both of them is get a good job. And he moved up through the paper mill industry and rose up from being, in the labor pool all the way up to running a mill as a manager. But then he got at one place he went to work with, his boss was more interested in taking his private airplane and taking flights instead of running the mill. And my dad wound up bumping up against him. And long story short, he got fired. And he'd never been fired before in his whole life. And then he's like in his prime. He's like in his 50s maybe. And I remember him calling me up and being distraught about it and not knowing what to do. And it was the best thing that ever happened to him. He wound up, instead of working in a paper mill, he went to work for a company that supplied paper mills. And he did tech support for him. He knew everything about a paper mill. He started up 8 different paper mills in his lifetime. And then that led him into sales. And basically they said, you're going to have to go slow your first year. You're going to have to learn how to do it. And we're going to put your quota pretty low. He was the salesman of the year that year. It really changed his life. But the reason I'm saying I'm glad you got fired is not because it was good for you. It was good for me. In a selfish way, that is how I discovered this business. Because you just said it happened to you in October, right? And that's when I got started in October. Because if you remember, you posted on Facebook group that we're in, and you said something like, I just got laid off from my company. I've been flipping land part-time. I'm going to start doing it full-time. And I thought to myself, what in the heck is land flipping? That doesn't even make sense. Is that even a thing? So I private message you, and my superhero power is asking questions. And we've been to a couple of a couple of workshops together where I actually get banned from asking more than 2 questions in a row. There's a Jake 2-question rule at these workshops I go to, because I like to ask questions. I want to find out. And we had an epic private message thread where I quizzed the heck out of you. And I even told you I would like to bring you on a webinar like this and interview you, not for the public, just for me and you, so I could just record it for my own personal reason to figure out how to do this business. And then you finally said, well, Jake, if you want to learn how to do it, you just need to go to landacademy.com and you join up there. That's how I learned it. So that's when I discovered, oh, you mean you didn't invent this? No, I didn't invent it. I learned it through this group over here where these people have been doing it for years. That even made me happier, because I like Tim, and even though I would want to learn from him, it gave it way more credibility to know that he's not the only one doing it, and that there's actually a force of people doing this and making big money. So you went full time. How did that go? That happened in October, and here it is. About 4 months later? How did that go for you?
It was rocky. It impacted my marriage. My wife was not on board, but there comes a time that I had to decide that I was going to do it. Or that story about the Greek king, and he landed his troops on shore and he set the ships on fire out in the ocean. It was a little bit like that. And I just had to decide that I was going to put everything I had into this business. I was going to put my head down and I was going to run as hard as I could at it for, at that time, it was from October, November, December. So for 90 days, I was going to put everything I had into it. And at that time, we had many, I don't remember the exact number, but we had a bunch of nice little parcels of land. We had some 5s, we had 10s, we had 7s scattered around. And I'll be darned if we did not sell every single parcel that we had by the end of the year. My goal was to sell everything on the books by January 1, and we got our final call on New Year's Eve about 4 p.m., and the guy said, I want that piece of land. And so that was it. That was the goal. We met the goal.
Wow.
And now we're at a point, we're not on easy street by a long stretch, but I'm going to tell you that my quality of life has improved like 1,000%. I mean, I'm happier. I'm less stressed. I'm with my kids. I'm helping with things around the house. The getting kids up into school and driving around, picking them up, and all those things. I'm now able to be a part of and not be exhausted in my life. And we
Well,
haven't missed. Go ahead.
if you're working 60 to 70 hours a week, you got to mute me, brother. If you're working 60 to 70 hours a week, I don't know even how you had time to have a family and do something part-time. But you mentioned early in the introduction that you were a Dave Ramsey fan, so I'm imagining that you probably had some type of emergency funds saved up so that you could. How long did you figure you could go without making any money from your business? And by the way, does your wife work outside the home?
Yeah, my wife works, but she works at our church part-time. So it's, I want to say this carefully because this is public. She provides a valuable service. She works in the funeral department, so she helps families get through the grieving process. But so it's not a career in the sense of being an accountant or a bank professional or something like that. It's a part-time gig for her that she does because it suits our schedule and she enjoys it. I'm going to tell you, dude, we had done Dave Ramsey, and the truth is, Jake, we have gotten off course over the years. So we are on a very thin wire. When I say this is do or die, I mean it literally. I've either got to make this land business work or I'm going back into construction. And I don't want to go back in construction. So we don't have a large nest egg. We don't have money tucked back. We got a bunch of debt and we made a bunch of poor decisions, dude.
So if you look at your a percentage of 100 is I'm making it and 0 I'm going back to construction, where do you fall on that 0 to 100 scale? Do you think what direction are you pointing in?
Well, at this point, now here we are. Let's see, I made it through the initial 90 days, and now we're almost into March, so I'm coming up on 120. I'm going to say that we're going to make this. The business model works, right?
But you got to have cash flow. The business has to work based on you have a partner too, right? So does your partner have another job, or are y'all both full time? And how do y'all work the business together that way?
Well, I'm in a unique situation with that. And this is not going to be everybody else's situation. This is a guy that I've known for 25 years. He's been one of my best friends. I mean, I've known him forever, and we have an official LLC and a corporate document that details everything. But right now, as we're making this work, there's a lot of flexibility in what we do. So he is not full-time. He's stuck with his career in the diesel industry for now, and I'm building this full-time. And at some point in the future, it'll catch up. The math is there. The numbers are there. The money will be there.
Right.
So we'll be able to reevaluate and when he's ready to come full-time, we'll both do it. But for now, I have been putting all of my effort into it, and he's, content to let me take some money out of the account as needed.
I was about to ask you that. Are you taking money out, and is it a bare minimum just to make sure your nut is covered?
Yeah, so our LLC, I'm a W-2 employee of my LLC, and this goes beyond what I'm really qualified to answer, but I can just tell you that I draw a salary, and yes, it's the bare minimum for us to get by, so that we can keep the power and the lights on and keep food in the fridge.
Dude, if you have a car that gets good gas mileage, You should be making money on mileage at 55 cents or whatever it is per mile. I'll give you this advice. If you don't have one, go look for a used TDI diesel VW. You know, you've heard Jack Spirko talk about them. I have a diesel Golf, gets 55 miles to the gallon. I would make money driving around with that thing at 55 cents per mile.
Well, I saw someone over here, somebody named Neil commented about paying a drone operator. And
Yep.
we've done that before too, and we've found local people and photos and videos. But for our situation and for the situation I'm in, that I have the time, it's just better for me to do it. And I can tell you, I've put on a bunch of miles driving around eastern Oklahoma and now eastern Texas.
So now you told me earlier on you worked in southern Oklahoma first, and then I was wondering why you didn't start in Texas, right out in your backyard, around the Dallas Fort Worth. How come you went that far? Is it just because the land is cheaper, starting costs are lower?
Yeah, so I did that for two reasons. Number one is I'm originally from Oklahoma, and my wife's family is in Oklahoma, so I sort of knew the area. So when I was mailing out mailers to these little towns, I would sort of have some idea of where they were located. But the more important reason is the thing you said. Once you cross the Red River, land in Oklahoma becomes 20 to 30% cheaper. And again, from Craigslist, I knew for a fact that people from Dallas Fort Worth were buying land in Oklahoma. I just seen it too much in Craigslist. So I knew that people with money in Dallas were willing to go across the Red River and buy a weekend place for a fraction of the price. And so really it was those two components, the fact that I sort of knew the area and then the value of the land. I felt like it was a better value.
Then why even leave southern Oklahoma and start working in Texas? What was the reason you decided to pull the trigger there?
Well, so we did it county for county. We worked our way like a lawnmower across Oklahoma. So we went from one county to the next county to the next county, and we kept working our way further north and further north and further north. And the last trip I made up there was really a little further than I wanted to go. It turned into a 2-night trip. And it wasn't a huge deal. I got a hotel room and whatever, and I drove around. But it was kind of at the very max of what I wanted to do. I live in Fort Worth, and my partner lives in Houston, and we both really think the direction of our business that we want to go is we want to be Texas land specialists. We really want to grow to a position where we're known as the Texas land guys. And so we started in northeast Texas near Texarkana, and we're kind of plotting out our strategy now to start looking between in East Texas, kind of convenient to Fort Worth, convenient to Houston, convenient to Austin and San Antonio and some of those locations. So we think we've got enough under our belt. But yeah, land in Oklahoma was cheap, and we knew we could get again, we built this thing on a shoestring.
Yeah, I applaud you for that. How many counties did you guys actually cover lawn mowing across the state?
We're all the way almost up to the Kansas border. We started at the Red River and we went all the way up darn near to the Kansas border. So that's
how many counties?
I don't know, Jake. It was a bunch of them. I'd have to count them. I can tell you. You'll have to pull up a county map of Oklahoma. We mailed a bunch of them. We mailed them all, man.
You mailed them all? Okay, I was just curious. There's 95 counties in Tennessee. I don't know that I would mail all of them, but I don't know how many counties are in Oklahoma. I was trying to get a gauge of how many counties you had to work to get to that 26 deals that you guys did in the first 2 years. Where are you guys at now, number-wise, as far as how many deals you've done? It's got to be more than 26 now, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that was interesting that happened at the end of the year, this past year, I sat down to our spreadsheet, and a huge percentage of our business, both overall dollar values and also the amount of deals we've done, was greatly accelerated by the time that I put into it after I lost my job. A huge percentage of our business. So we're up around 40 deals right now.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Jake, I mean, there's 77 counties in Oklahoma. We've hit all of them on the eastern portion. That's got to be a full third of the state. I mean, I would say we've mailed 20 counties. I'm going to guess.
I was just curious. All right. Let's move into some marketing here. Once you buy a property, what's your set method? By the way, JD is giving you a shout out, says he wants to show your support. I guess JD is somebody you know.
He's from the Land Academy group.
Oh, okay, cool. Hey, JD. But when you buy a property, what do you do leading up to the purchase of the property to get ready to market it? Because I imagine that you're probably collecting data as you're purchasing a property that you're going to use to market. And what is your marketing method? What ways do you have that you do every single time to try to market a property?
Well, yeah, let me back up just a minute. One of the things that we do that I don't think anyone else in this industry does, the biggest thing, I alluded to it earlier, the whole pre-purchase research is really the key to knowing what you've got. And there for a while, we were calling it the dead grandma syndrome, because I told you this method that people have, a hand and land down, and they'll deed some land to one grandson, and he'll deed it over and deed it. And you end up with these dead people in the chain of title. And you really got to research that stuff out. In Texas, we don't have as much experience in Texas, but Texas seems to be an easier state to close deals in. Oklahoma can be very onerous as far as making sure there's a clean title and they'll insure it and some stuff like that. And it's really been a little tricky. What we do that's worked well for us is we found a petroleum landman. And that's not just a job or a title at a company. A landman is an actual certificate. It's not quite a 4-year degree, but it's a certificate. And we'll pay a landman and we'll give him a list of properties in a particular county and say, okay, I need you to go to Pittsburgh County Courthouse and I need you to research out all of these deals. And then he'll give us a little report about how it looks like on the title, and does it look like this person has clean title. And that also helped us, because his job, the petroleum landman, his job is to research all that stuff anyway. He just looks under the ground. But now we're paying him to look above the ground. And so hiring a landman has really helped us to avoid some of those kind of problems that, you just can't get clean title on land. Then when the landman gives us the clean bill of health for a particular property, we buy it. And if it's large enough, we find that it's always better to go through a full title close and get the title insurance and an abstract and have the whole package. And then our primary marketing method is Facebook.
Oh, really? You don't do LandWatch, or do you do Craigslist or any of that other stuff?
We'll do Craigslist because it's free, and we get sometimes responses from Craigslist, but we really get a lot of feedback from Facebook. Now, what I didn't know at first, I was a latecomer to Facebook just personally. I thought, well, that doesn't sound like it'd be any fun. That seems like a waste of time. I can see why it's a little bit addictive, but to start a business account, I had to have a personal account. And so I had to have my own personal account where I connected with high school friends and college buddies and those kind of things. And as a subset of that, I have my business page. I didn't really want to do it that way, but at the time I couldn't figure out how to just get a business account set up. And so we promote our stuff through Facebook very heavy, and we get a lot of likes, we get a lot of views. We get a lot of feedback. Most of our sales come through Facebook. We have decided for us that it's not worth it to pay the LandWatch and I don't know who all they are, the Farm and Ranch and the other sites. We find that the subscription rate is not worth it for us.
Okay, fair enough. When you said you started out on a shoestring, to me, it sounds like, did you do any self-closing? Because it sounds like to me, if you're hiring somebody to do title search, that has to be taking a chunk out of your sales. How much do you wind up paying for a title close and insurance versus did you do any self-closing, and did that come back to bite you in the butt or something?
Yeah, so again, there's kind of two different levels at which people transfer land, and there's kind of the good old boy brother-in-law fashion, which is the self-close. And that basically amounts to hiring a notary, a mobile notary, and they'll go out and they'll transfer the property from the existing owner to us. And then we'll do the same thing in the other direction. And we'll just do it with a notary. And it can be done that way. And we find that for smaller properties, it's fine. But once you get into bigger properties, if somebody's going to drop $20,000 or $30,000 on your property, they want title insurance. And
Right.
the only way to get title insurance is to go through the full close, which means an abstract, which means an attorney's opinion. And so for smaller deals, the math is not there to support that. So on a smaller deal, you have to pretty well go the self-close route.
But on a $20,000 deal, how much would that cost you guys?
$1,500 to $2,000.
Okay. I don't know if you've been listening to Thursday calls, but Joe Schmidt, Joe Martin. Joe came on a call. He's had great success in this business. In fact, his 1-year anniversary was this past December. So he's only been in business just a little over a year. And the guy is sending out around 5,000 to 7,500 mailers every month. He's killing it in infill properties. And he came on the line the other day and said, yeah, I don't use title search companies or title close companies anymore. I use attorneys. And I found an attorney that all he does is close real estate. And this guy can turn around a non-title insurance close within 24 to 48 hours. If you want title insurance, he can do it in 72 hours. Like, holy cow, for 3 days, he can have your deal closed with title insurance. And it's not even as expensive as a title company. And evidently, you can look for these guys online or Google real estate closing attorney. And if you find one that's all he does, if he does anything else, you probably don't want to work with him. But I just thought that was fascinating. So I don't know if you heard about that. That might be a way to save some money and get it done quicker. I self-closed my first 2 deals, the only 2 deals I've done so far. Bought both of them on the same day. And both of them, the people live close enough that there was a branch in one town that they lived in, and the other guy lived on the other side of me, about 30 minutes away. And I just met them at my bank branch, who offered notary services for free. So I just I called them up ahead of time and said, hey, I'm going to be needing a notary for a transaction we're doing. Had no problem at all. They came in. It was in a professional environment, and they signed. They notarized our signatures, and everything went off like clockwork. And I got my cashier's check from my bank and handed them the cashier's check. So I felt pretty confident doing that. I don't know that I'd feel as confident with somebody out of state. That's when you have to start hiring people you don't know to go figure out how to go, meet with your potential buyers or sellers and do that. So I haven't come across that bridge yet. But I can see scaling up and using either a title company, but I would think I would prefer this new route, which is find these attorneys who specialize in real estate, and they only work with investors. They know what you want, and they get it done.
Yeah, that sounds like a good tip and something that we can look into. I mean, I know that with websites like, what do they call Upwork? I mean, you can hire anybody to do anything online, so that's probably a good tip.
All right. So when you guys start getting this stuff together, when you go look at a property that you're thinking about buying, and on the back end, you're thinking, I might buy this thing, so I'm having to travel up to Oklahoma or East Texas, do you go ahead and take drone footage and videos and stuff as if you were buying it just in case, or do you come back on another trip to do that?
Jake, I've done it both ways. It kind of depends on where the property is at. Again, I've got family in Oklahoma, and so if it's convenient for me to go up there and see family, I can make a double trip. But if not, I just go and get all of my rough footage done all at once. And so, again, from looking at a property now, I can pretty well know. I've learned enough about the access and the ravines and those kind of things to know if I want the property or not. So I try and schedule my trips for good weather. and I'll just go out, and just with my phone and the camera and the drone, and just get everything, rough footage all at once.
Let me ask you this: how handy is having a drone to at least see if the property is what you want? So I'd imagine you can fly that thing over and see what's going on in the back end of the property without having to necessarily walk it. Does that help you scout a property out and ferret out some of the problems it might have?
It has it has before. There was a property that I thought maybe had a pond on it, or maybe it didn't. But once I got the drone up in the air, you could see the fence line, and but the drone really is. It just makes for nice marketing, just a nice aerial. You can put it 400 feet up in the air and spin the thing around, and you can look around. So that's really the primary use of the drone.
I know this is probably an out of bound question, but what kind of drone do you have?
It's
DJI?
DJI. I was looking for it. It's right on the desk somewhere. It's an Air Mavic 2.
Okay, a Mavic 2, the new one?
Yeah.
Oh man, those are nice. Is it the Zoom or the Pro?
That I don't know, Jake.
Can you zoom in on your remote? Okay, you got the Pro. That particular drone is the cat daddy right now. I don't think there's anything better for the money out there, and I'm salivating because I want one too. I would like to have one because they have so many built-in automated flight paths that you can do that really comes off as a professional-looking video that even a knob. How long did it take you to learn how to fly it?
Just a couple times. I mean, it's pretty. We live in the electronic age, and I'm not a guru at it, but it's easy enough to get up in the air, take a little footage, bring it back down, and pack it up. So it really is. It just makes for a nice overall package. And my buddy, his forte is in the construction of the videos and building all that. So I just gather up a bunch of rough footage and send it all to him, and then he puts it together, and we'll do a little portion on the laptop where we capture the screen in Google Earth and we zoom in, and then he'll put in actual field footage interspersed with the laptop screen template, and it turns out really nice.
All right, so tell me this: let's move into tools, because that's basically what makes our business tick. Is that we can do everything in this business. Technically, you don't have to drive and even look at a property. Most of the guys in this business get to the point where they don't go anywhere. They're working off a laptop or their computers. They're using software and computer tools, and then they use virtual assistants in the Philippines or whatever. What tools do you use? Everybody uses Google Earth. Everybody uses Parcel Fact if you're part of our group. What other tools have you used that maybe the average Land Academy member may not be aware of, or maybe there's a hack you figured out that's really helped you be able to do your business easier?
Well, one thing we use is a website called Asana, Asana, and then we also use one called HubSpot, and we've used both of those. We started with Asana and then went to HubSpot, and that helps us to keep track of our deals. We bought the drone.
Wait a minute, what is Asana? Can you explain a little bit more about what it is and how it works?
Asana, Asana,
okay.
And it's just a web-based application, and it's a way for us to organize notes. And so let's say you and I were going to partner on a deal, and we would create an entry in Asana, and we'd call it 5 acres in Tennessee or whatever we wanted to call the property. And then I would go and I'm typing on the computer here. You can't see that, but I'd make my notes on it, and then it would be in there. And then you'd be able to see it. Yeah. No, I don't have it open. I'm just saying that Asana is just a way for you and I in remote locations to be able to access one common set of data. So if you wanted to know what my conversation with Mrs. Smith was, or the email with Farmer Johnson or whatever, it's all in there. And so because I'm in Fort Worth and he's in Houston, and so we've had to come up with ways to kind of keep all of our data centralized. Yeah, there we go. Neil's got it.
Thanks, Neil. Appreciate that. And then you said the other one is HubSpot. I've heard of HubSpot. I know a little bit about them, but how does that work?
So that's just, I think they call it a CRM, which is someone else will know what CRM, customer relations or something. But we enter in all the contacts and all the deals, and we've created a little deal flow. And so for Smith, 5 acres in Wagner County, we know that we're at this stage of the deal and we want to move it over along into here, and it moves along and just keeps track of everything. It keeps track of all the conversations. We can put all the pictures in there, all the legal information, all the documents, all that stuff gets stored in one location.
That sounds a little like Pipe Drive, which I'm trialing right now. I'm not sure I'm going to stick with it because it's basically Excel on steroids, but it does something similar. It shows more of a visual context of you've made a contact, you've evaluated the property, you made an offer, and it shows you in a visual sense. But it's basically you just download your database. I don't even know if I'm going to keep doing it because it does cost money. Now James has a really great question. With house flipping, buying at 30% below market is considered a good deal and difficult to find. Why is it that these land deals you guys are talking about are selling for 80 to 90% below market? The reason is, James, is because we're using long tail marketing. It's kind of like the reason why Netflix put Blockbuster out of business. Back in the day, if you remember going to Blockbuster on a Friday night, it was like a big whirlwind of people it's like a shark tank of people slowly circling Blockbuster looking for that video they hadn't seen yet that they want to take home and watch. And Blockbuster can only have a couple of thousand titles on their shelf because they just don't have a store big enough to have everything. Netflix came along and put 115,000 titles in their library. But what they figured out is they're not dependent on people who just live a mile or two away from their Blockbuster. They can rent movies to everybody in the United States. So they know if they have that weird documentary that nobody really even knows about, there's going to be somebody almost every night that's going to rent that somewhere in America. And so Netflix really put Blockbuster out of business by using that long tail marketing where they've got a wide, long, big inventory of things to sell. And because they have a vast number of people, that's why eBay made it as long tail marketing. People collected Pez dispensers as a collectible, and you could find them on eBay because somebody out there does the same thing you do. So what we do is similar to that, is that we use data that we can say download, like he said, every 5 acre property in a particular county, and there might be 700, there might be 2,000 properties that fit that description, and we are mailing every one of those properties that it's an unimproved, vacant, raw piece of land, and we're offering them a specific price. And it may be basically in a nutshell, usually you find the lowest selling piece of property in that county that you can find anywhere on any website like LandWatch or Realtor.com, and whatever that lowest price per 1,000 acre, maybe it's $3,000 per acre, is the lowest you've seen. Then you want to turn around and mail that letter to everybody in that county with a 5 acre parcel, for example. 25% of the lowest priced parcel that you can find for sale. So if it's selling for $3,000, you're going to send them a letter offering them $750 for that parcel. And if they buy it, you can turn around and buy it for $750. Turn around, sell it for $1,500, double your money, and you're still half the price of anybody else out there that's selling property. What you have to realize, though, you do have to do the long tail. You have to send out 1,000 or 15. You have to send out 1,500 pieces of mail to maybe get 2 or 4 or 5 deals of people who, when they get that letter, they don't tear it up. They don't get on the phone and actually call you and cuss you out, because people do that. It literally makes them so mad they call you, or they fill out the form. One guy filled out the form, and I thought I'd got a deal because my wife said, some guy just sent us a letter that has something about purchase agreement. I said, really? We got to sell then. I got it, looked at it, and the guy had signed his name, "Are you smoking crack?" And so, but there are a handful of people, and I explain it to this. When I get a hate call from a lady that says, "Are you kidding me? Is this a joke? Is this a legit?" Yes, ma'am. I can tell that you're probably not enamored by my offer. Oh, heck no. You're offering me $3,000. This land is worth $50,000. I would never sell my land. I said, well, ma'am, that letter really wasn't meant for you. It was really meant for the person who they live in Nevada, and their dad passed away in Tennessee, and they inherited some land. They've never seen the land. They never even knew their dad had it. They don't want it. They're not interested in it. They certainly don't want to pay the taxes on it. And then for whatever reason, they're so lazy they won't even call a local real estate agent in Tennessee to try to sell it for them. I mean, they don't have any money out of pocket. They didn't buy the property, so it's not like they're losing money if they take a low price. And so some people see that letter and they say, wow, you just solved my problem. I don't want it anyway. I can get a cashier's check in a week. And there's a handful of people that will respond that way. In fact, I don't know if you know this, Tim, but Justin Sleva, who he comes on the podcast that Jill DeWitt and Stephen Batalla, who run Land Academy. It's a couple. They have a podcast, great podcast. You guys need to look it up. It's Land Academy podcast, and they bring Justin on Fridays and call it Casual Fridays or Finance Fridays. And Justin is really good at this business. And I don't know where I was going with that. Where was I going with that? I just had a brain fart.
Well, you were talking about the long tail and sending out a lot of mail and the hate that you sometimes get and the people that the dads in Nevada and.
Right. Anyway, I don't even know where I was going with that, but bottom line is there's enough people that will buy what you have. They're willing to sell and they're happy about selling, and you're doing them a favor. Anyway, go listen to the podcast because you'll find out that they've been doing this for a long time and they keep doing the same. It'll come back to me why I was going to pull comment about what Justin is doing. Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah,
So does that answer your question, James, by the way? I don't know why my screen just blew up. Are you there? Did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Okay. My screen got super big there for whatever reason. I don't know why it did that. All right.
Yeah, I'll just tie into what you said about that. I mean, I like what you said. We try and come in about 25% of full retail. And so if land in Oklahoma in a particular location is going for $4,000 an acre, we want to come in about $1,000 an acre. And yeah, 99% of those people are going to either, it's like there's a bell curve of people, and the James says, okay, so brute force hunting for someone. Yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah, I guess it's just brute force hunting. It's all about finding the right situation at the right time.
Yeah, and that definitely does work. So I'm trying to figure out. My screen blew up so big that I can't even see you on the screen. Hold on. Okay, that didn't work. All right, well, let's keep going. I'm going to have to wing it here without being able to see your lovely face. So other tools that you use. What other tools? You mentioned your drone, but what about other?
One of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking, we went pretty quickly to a subscription-based answering service called Pat Live, and that really has been valuable. I would not discontinue Pat Live for anything because they take all of that hate call now. And so we've developed a screening process so that by the time the person gets all the way through the questions and to whether we call them back or not, we pretty well know if they're a serious seller or not. And so that Pat Live is really invaluable for us because it frees us up in so many ways and we don't have to answer all that hate all the time.
Well, I'm going to say that I'm going to agree and also disagree because I think there's like you say, there's nothing that can replace going out and seeing a piece of land. But what I have noticed is that I love the phone. I grew up in business using the telephone to set appointments and calling prospects and calling referrals. You had to learn how to deal with people on the phone. So I don't care when people call me up and give me hate. I think it's funny. In fact, I record my calls, so eventually I'm probably going to upload them to a website where you can listen to them just for kicks. But I don't mind that because here's what I have found out. There are people that call me up that are hateful, but there's also people that call me up that are just curious. And you can tell because they'll say things like, they'll say, one guy said, well, is this offer legitimate? Is this figure actually correct? And I said, well, he said, because I'm asking because I want to know if it's legitimate before I start laughing at it. I said, well, yeah, it is legitimate. That's the price. I said, but I take it you're not really excited about my offer. He goes, no, my offer's worth, my property's worth about 90,000, and you're offering me 11,000. I said, yeah, that's right. And he said, well, you know what? Do you guys actually buy properties that cheap? I said, yeah, every now and then. And he started questioning me like, well, how do you do that? And I said, well, why? Do you invest in property? He goes, yeah, I do. I buy land all over the county. And the next thing you know, we're having a great conversation. And to come to find out, the guy owned a big factory in this little town. He's a big guy, big deal. He's got lots of money. He buys like excavators and bulldozers for the fun of it because he likes to play on them on the land that he buys. And so now this guy is on my buyer's list. And I've turned many people like that were just kind of curious. And I said, well, let me ask you a question, especially when they say things like, man, I wish I could buy property like that. I'd be buying it all day long. I said, well, let me ask you a question. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy property like this. I'm going to turn around and put it right back on the market, but I'm going to leave a lot of meat on the bone. It's going to be under market, probably 30% or more under market. If I brought you a piece of property in your county that was a deal like that, would you want to know about it? He would say, well, yeah. I said, well, tell you what, let me get your email address. I'll put you on my buyer's list. And when something comes up, I'll just send you the details on it. And maybe you'll like it. Maybe you won't. Sure. I've got 8 or 9 people now just from that first mailer because I answered the phone. So I don't know if I want to give up to Pat Live. I want to be forced into Pat Live at the point where I can't take any more phone calls, and I want to be able to scale my business. Maybe then I'll do it. But right now I'm loving the phone. I've made all kind of contacts with builders and developers and land investors that I just think it's going to benefit me long run.
I can see that. That sounds like a valuable strategy. I get where you're coming from. So maybe it just depends on the person's temperament, because I don't want any of that. But you do. So maybe it's just everybody's got to build their own business in their own way that makes sense for them. But I get what you're saying.
Yep. How many? And I can't even see the questions now. Let me see if I can get over here and get to the questions. Has anybody out there feel the same way? If you're out there doing deals, I know some of you guys may be brand new to this. You've never even seen this. Like James, it sounds like to me, James, you didn't realize what our business model is all about, and it is that it's mailing letters. You're targeting a group of people who there's such a few of them out there, but there's enough of them that you can become wealthy in this business. There are people making 7 figures in this business. Let me ask you this. If anybody's out there that you've had something similar situation, are you fielding phone calls, and do you like it? Or have you pawned it off onto Pat Live or some other service? Let me ask you this. What do you think about the infill lot business? And are you considering maybe working in that area?
Yeah. So do you want to tell? Well,
why don't you explain again what infill lots are, yeah, and then maybe you can answer the question.
So the initial business model is based off of rural land. So like we find land that's ideal for somebody that wants a place. They want to get out of the city. They want to ride 4-wheelers or ride horses or build a cabin or what have you. Infill lots are like take a city like Fort Worth that has a lot of suburbs, and scattered all around town are these little lots that never got houses built on them. And you can go through and pull the data, and you can send out mailers for all these little vacant lots that are here and there and everywhere in metro areas. And I have watched the video series, Jake, and I kind of tried to do it step for step like he did, and I ran into some troubles, and I'm not going to say that we're never going to do it, because I do like it, and I've got some specific areas in Texas I want to target using that. But I got to tell you, man, right now, mailing out letters for rural land, I've got more land to buy right now than I've got money to buy the land with. I mean, I've got more than I can do right now. So I'm not really ready to add another element to the business right now, although we will be at some point.
Well, have you considered maybe doing it and then put it in the land tank where you don't have to put your money in, and maybe doing it that way?
Yeah, since the addition of Land Tank, and
Did I lose you?
no, I'm here. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yeah, I can now.
That seems like a really good way to go because there are people out there who have the money but they don't necessarily want to do the legwork of the deal. And so you find someone that has we're willing to put in the legwork and the research and all that, and if someone's willing to fund it. So I think funding deals or having people fund deals is probably a great strategy. They just came out with this land tank. They had a thing called a hoot board, which seemed to work. We got connected with a few people through this hoot board. But this land tank, I posted one deal on it just to kind of get the system and figure it out, and talk to some people that yeah, they want to invest in land, and so I'm willing to go out there and find deals for them. And so I think that's probably going to be a bigger part of our future.
Where do you see yourselves going on and scaling up? Because we had a question from one of the attendees who sent in they filled out the survey. And by the way, guys, if you decide you like this webinar and you like the idea of interviews like this, I'm going to be finding more and more successful buyers and investors and sellers to interview every week. And if you're in the audience and you feel like you're in that scenario where you've got a story to tell, I'd like to hear from you. I definitely would like to interview, but I'd like to fill out the survey. When you register, there's a place to take a survey, so you can ask advanced questions of the guests coming up. But you can also ask questions about what are you guys looking for. And if you do that, one of the guys that did fill out the survey was wondering about scaling. That was his biggest problem, is how to scale up and how to have time to scale up. He just didn't seem to have time. What would you recommend, Tim, for somebody that needs to scale up or wants to scale up? How would you do that?
You could get fired from your job. That's what worked for me. I don't know. I know how we did it, and as well as it is working, I don't know that I would recommend that path to anybody. Dude, it was devastating, man. For that October around my house was pretty rough. When had just lost my job, it was October 1st, and I was making a commitment to do this, and my wife wasn't really behind me. It was tough. So that's maybe not the best way, but it worked.
When you say you said your wife wasn't behind you, what was her attitude about it, and how did you guys come to a consensus?
Man, I don't really want to go into all that, Jake, because she's got a side, and this is not marriage counseling. But I'll just say that I have a history of come up with lots of schemes and dreams, and I'm going to build Amway, and I'm going to be the super golden distributor of the year, and that goes back to the beginning. And so there was a whole lot of that she needed some reassurance that I wasn't just going to be sitting in front of the computer playing whatever, goofing off in games. She needed some assurance that I was going to use the Dave Ramsey thing, leave the cave and kill something to bring it home to eat. She needed to see some money. And that's all I really want to say about that. I will. So James has a question here. Says, what's the target split? So I'll tell you, James, the typical way we've done it is that we find the deal, and then the third party will fund the deal 100%, and then we will split the profits 50-50. That's been a pretty typical scenario and seems to be what people want to do in the land business. And you asked about scaling up, Jake, and I'll just say this, and I don't necessarily want to get into numbers because everybody's at a different place, but I will tell you that so I used that target period of October 1 when I lost my job to the end of the year when we sold all of our land, and we had a number in mind that was a pretty big number, more money than I'd ever seen in a bank account, and I'll be darned if we were not within $1,000 of that goal. We hit it almost to the T. And so now we have a goal that, quite frankly, is hairy and audacious and a little overwhelming. But we are going to push forward, and I'll bet we're going to get close to it. And so again, the money's in the model. This thing works exactly like they say it works. It's the craziest thing. And so to scale up, there's no easy answer except just to scale up. You just like we did. You go from a 5 to a 7 to a 9 to a 12 to a 20. And then at some point, I believe, and I don't want to speak for I believe that my partner and I have some credibility in this industry now, in this business, and our peer group that they would trust us to find deals for money. So I think that component is coming too, where we have outside investors because we've done quite a bit of legwork in smaller deals.
Cool. I'll tell you, our stories are very similar. I got into this doing it by myself, but my best friend, who I've known for about the same amount of time, was kind of looking over my shoulder, like, yeah, he was like, yeah, I hope it works for you, man. But he's like, he just could not believe that somebody would sell their property that low. And so even though the theory sounded good, it was like, yeah, you're going to have to actually show me the results. And when I think I had like two serious offers on the table, and really I had about 24 different parcels that I was looking at. And he started getting a little bit interested. And I had one lady wanted me to make an offer on 4 parcels that she had with a total of 22 acres. And it was going to be a little bit more money than I wanted. And I just went to him and said, hey, man, do you want to go in on this one with me 50-50? He goes, why? I said, well, because it's just a little bit more than I think that I can handle. And I don't mind splitting the profits with you. So the next thing you know is like, we just need to team up and work together on this, because our money goes a lot further, and 2 heads are better than one. And it's working out great so far, and we're working as a team. He's got strengths, and I have a few different ones, and so we're just working on it together. So Nick is on the phone. Hey, Nick, good to have you here. So you answer all your phone calls because my acquisition and sales numbers are the same. I might go to Pat Live for answering my mailers. Okay. What's the difference in having them answering your mailers versus answering your phone calls for acquisitions? I didn't know that might be something different. Am I misreading that?
No, I think what he's saying, so that's our strategy, is we have two phone numbers. We have one phone number that we associate with buying land, and we have another phone number that we associate with selling land. So when we send out a mailer, we put the number on that's associated with buying the land, and that goes directly to Pat Live. If it's a potential buyer, you're right. I want my hands on that person, and I want to give them the warm soothing and give them the all shucks routine and really make them feel warm and cozy. I don't want that call to go to the answering service. But for the calls about selling, those go to the answering service, and so we have the 2 numbers.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I think there was another. James is asking, what's your typical hold time on a property?
It varies, but I'll tell you, based on the way we price it, not very long. I mean, I've sold properties. I've sold properties in one day. I've sold properties before they were on the market. I've sold properties in a week. I would say typically 30 days or less. I've got one right now in Texarkana that's between the 30 and 60-day window, and that one's a little frustrating for us. So we have like a 30, 60, 90-day plan, and at 90 days is fire sale time. So we want to have properties. Velocity is more important than holding out for maximum profit.
Yeah, I heard Justin Sleva talking about a lumber play where, he had a property that was supposed to be 10 acres or something, and when they went out, they said, no, it's only actually 2 acres or whatever it was. It was something wrong with it. So he had the county out there, and one of the county employees walking the land said, you got about $100,000 worth of timber sitting here. He said, really? Yeah. So he kept thinking about, well, should he go and try to, make $100,000 off a timber play? But you got to hire a logging company, and then it takes a long time to do that. And his idea was, I could make $100,000, but it might take me 6 months, or it might take me a year to do that. I can make way more money than $100,000 if I just turn that money, sell the property, take it, reinvest it. Now you're going to get twice as much property. I mean, if you think about this, if you're buying a piece of property for $2,000, and you can turn around and double your money easily and sell it in a couple, 2 or 3 weeks or a month or two for $4,000. Now you take your $4,000 and you can buy 2 parcels for $2,000 each. And now you bought two more parcels that you're going to sell for $8,000. You just keep compounding and doubling your money. Before you know it, you look up and you got a big stack of money. Can you give me an overall idea? I think you told me, if you're willing to share, how much money you guys have actually paid for property and how much you've actually sold it for, that kind of that margin that you might have.
Well, I can just tell you that we keep a spreadsheet, and again, at some point here, the money becomes more than I've ever seen in a bank account associated with being a construction superintendent, if that's what you mean. I mean, are you talking about keeping track of deals from day one and how much have we spent?
Yeah, like, hey, I invested $50,000, we turned it into $100,000. I mean, do you have a kind of an idea?
It's I don't know, Jake. I'd rather not say, Jake. I'll just say that, you know, it's enough money that I really see my future as being a lot different than my past. I really see this as, I think great things are going to be happening for us. Again, you know, I've devoted, I've put in a lot of focused effort into this thing, and going full time has really been the keystone for me.
All right, so Kevin has got an interesting question here. So do you suppose there are folks with the land flipping tools and experience like yourselves who would be willing to let someone like me pay them for help in finding myself an inexpensive piece of land to live on? In other words, you don't want to be in the land flipping business. You just want to get that cheap piece of land. I'm not ready to get into flipping yet, but I can imagine paying a chunk of money to an experienced person to get a list of 1,000 or 2,000 addresses to mail that fit my criteria, and maybe another chunk of money for consulting along the way about how to do the title transfer, etc. How would I go about getting in touch with someone who would want to do this? Well, I tell you what I would do, Kevin, is I would do exactly what Tim did to me, which was, Jake, if you just want to learn how to do the business, you can just go over to landacademy.com and learn it from them. And you're going to pay a little bit of money to get started. You're going to look at probably $1,200 to $2,000 in that range to join the membership. I don't know exactly what the price is now, but I do know that Jill, one of the partners, she tends to have sales from time to time, and she does it dirt cheap, where instead of paying $2,500 to join, you can do it for half price at $1,200. She just had a sale recently like that. For $1,200 or $2,000, you can become a member. You can listen to the podcast, but inside the membership is a video series that tells you exactly how to do it. And there is an ongoing cost feature. You have to probably budget about $250 a month to be able to access the tools. But if you're trying to buy your own piece of property to live on, and you want to buy a $50,000 piece of property for $12,000 or $15,000, well, heck, you can afford to spend the money to join Land Academy and learn how to do it and use their tools, and you'll make all your money back in your first purchase. You might decide you want to get into the land flipping business, but you don't have to. You could do it just in order to buy your first piece of property that you can live on. You may have to sort through a lot more offers to find what you want to live on, but that's the beauty of it. They're out there everywhere. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, so, and one of the things, too, with that is I've thought about, for someone looking for a piece of land for themselves, you wouldn't come in at 25%. Maybe you'd come in at 50% or 60 or 75. You know that. So earlier I talked about 4,000 an acre. If land in the county is going for 4,000, for business purposes, we come in at 25. But if I wanted to live there, I'd come in at 50 or 75, and I would get many more offers to choose from, and I'd still get a great deal on land. You know, Kevin, I've talked about this with my partner about maybe kind of coming up with new angles on the business, or do something like you're discussing here, maybe some kind of consulting or coaching or something. And we're working with a couple of new guys that just got started in the land business. And, you know, I'm not going to say you can't do it, but I would just really echo what Jake said, and just the podcast, Land Academy podcasts are free. And yep, you can really get a good meaty bite just from the free podcasts.
I mean, heck, there's over 900 episodes. So you can start with the latest one and work backwards. And you're going to learn a lot about this business from doing that. And then you can also get on Land Academy forum. There is a free section for people like yourselves that are not part of the membership where you can get in the forum and ask any question you want. And you could probably find a lot of the answers to questions you're looking for by searching the forum. And then there's Justin Sleva and his partner. They have a podcast called the REI Casual Fridays podcast. And I'm not sure what that, let me see if I can find a link to that. But that's another podcast. These two successful members of our group are having their own podcast on, and they can learn that. So let me put this in my browser and see if I can find it real quick. Casual Fridays, and if I can, I'll post a link. So here's a question for you guys. I'm going to get close to wrapping this up. I think we've probably drilled down as much as we're going to do. Who in here thought that this was worthwhile to come here and spend an hour and a half and doing this kind of stuff? If you think you would like to see it again, I just want to get an idea that I don't really want to waste anybody's time, but I enjoy doing this. But you got to enjoy wanting to be here. If you don't mind letting me know if that's something that you'd want to do in the future, you'll be getting another email from me, and I would be glad to. I'm looking for my next interview. So if you guys are out there, that it might be Nick Slager that wants to be interviewed. I don't know. We'll see. But there's the link to the podcast, the REI Casual Fridays podcast. Give that a listen. Look up Land Academy. I don't get paid to do that. If they ever start an affiliate program, I definitely will be offering it as an affiliate because I know there's going to be a lot of people that want to be a part of it. But I will tell you this, time's going to run out because they've already, I don't know if you know this, Tim, but in one of the calls, they even mentioned that they can see this thing scaling up so big and getting, the members starting to do joint deals and doing bigger deals and maybe going commercial and the infill lots, which are much more profitable but takes a little bit more work. They said, they even mentioned that there would be a day where they think they would close the membership because they just don't, it would get to the point where there's just too many people. They don't want to keep, they're not selling the memberships for the sake of selling memberships. They're really building a community that can work with each other and build this empire of real estate investors who just, it evolves into something that we're not even sure what it's going to be in a year or two from now.
I wondered about that. We've talked about that a lot. Once we enrolled, we kind of wanted to. We wanted them to scale back enrollment. We didn't want to let everyone know.
But yeah, the local joke is I paid my membership. I hope I'm the last one in the door, and they close it up after I get in. But there's plenty of room, I think, for this market to do this kind of stuff. So
James says he wants to get in touch to discuss funding some deals. Jake, do you have through this podcast? Do you have a way to contact you privately or me, or how does that?
Well, James, you got a mess. You probably got an email when you registered for the webinar. From that email, you could respond to it, and you should be getting an email directly from me. So yeah, you can just email me. I don't mind putting my email in the. Let me put my email up here if anybody wants to get a hold of it. If anybody wants to contact me because you've got an idea about maybe being a guest, we can chat about it. Just give me a holler and give me a second here, and I'm putting my email address in. Or you can also go to that website, buybyland.com, and contact me through the contact page. Either way, my phone number's in there too. So Ben enjoyed it. Juan enjoyed it. Enjoyed the podcast. Joe enjoyed. Good info. Just need to figure out how to overcome not being American. Wait a minute, Greg. Are you from another country? Are you located somewhere else? Did you say Ontario? Maybe you're from Ontario. I can't remember. But Greg, there are people that are actually doing this business. Do you know a guy named Mylan, Tim? It's in the forum. I think he's from Spain.
I don't know him.
Canadian. Yeah, Greg, you can do this business all day long. You can actually do it in Canada, but we have some other Canadians that do business down here, and because you don't have to go visit the land. I think Tim and I are anomalies in the. If you took all the people in Land Academy, and I think Stephen mentioned there was about 350 active members. And there's probably more than that just not do anything with it, but he said there's 350 people that are doing something. The vast majority of them never visit the property. You do not have to go to the property to make a go of this thing. In fact, most of them would probably school us, wouldn't they, Tim? And they'd probably scold us and say, "You guys are wasting time going to properties. You can spend way more time. You just need to send more mailers and do more deals and flip them quicker, and you'd make more money. And the velocity of money, you're wasting time to go into properties." Wouldn't you think they'd say that?
Yeah, several people have commented that just what you said. I'm an anomaly, but again, it works for me, and so this is. I don't intend to do it forever, but for where we're at, where we needed to be, it's worked. But yeah, no one else or minimal people have followed that route.
All right, Tim. Any last words? Because I'm going to go ahead and cut it and call it on this one. But do you have any last words? I really appreciate you being on and spending the time with us.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. I had a lot of fun. I don't really have anything fun. I don't have anything to promote. My land business is called Rural Land Watch. We're on Facebook. And when we bring new deals to the market, we post them on Facebook first. So if you wanted to find me, go to Facebook Rural Land Watch and just follow us. And we've got some good stuff coming up in Oklahoma, and we're going to have some good stuff coming up in Texas, too.
It can't hurt to contact you because you might wind up doing some kind of deal together at some point, buying or selling property together. So yeah, get a hold of Tim. Guys, I appreciate you guys coming out. You will get a follow-up link to a replay of the broadcast if you want to go back and take notes. And if you guys have suggestions about how to improve this situation, make the webinar better. If you've got comments or critique or whatever, just I can take the hate just like the phone calls. You can't hurt my feelings. But I do want to appreciate everybody being on the call tonight. I'm doing this for you guys as much as I am doing it for myself. I really enjoy interviewing people like this and getting down to the nitty gritty and finding stuff that we can ferret out that can help us in our business. If you're not in our business yet, hey, give the podcast a listen. Go over to landacademy.com and check it out. I think you'll be glad you did. With that, Tim, we're out of here, brother. We appreciate you being here, and we'll see you out in the land, in the fields of land, and let's see if we go close with more deals.
Sounds great, Jake. Thanks for having me, man. I enjoyed it.
All right, brother. Until next time.